Welcome in to Outkick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you had spectacular weekends. I had a good time in St. Louis hanging out with my friends at the Home Loan Expert. Met a lot of Outkick fans. Hope a lot of you got the opportunity, as well as I know you did, to get into the suite there. Great job by Ryan Kelly. Watched 4 games on Friday, watched 2 games on Saturday, flew back, had a great time running around everywhere. Much to get to today. I want to tell you, as always, that Outkick the show is brought to you by sportsbookreview.com. And I'm telling you right now, go there and get hooked up for the NCAA tournament. They've got a great breakdown. We've got a $5,000 against the spread bracket challenge. It's free to enter. I'll tweet out the link after I finish the show today. Encourage you guys to play against me. Of course, I'm going to kick your ass because I'm better at gambling than you are. I'll also be giving all my gambling picks for every single first and second round game, as I've done for like the last 5 years now. So far, that has gone pretty well, and I will continue to do it. Update, I will be in Las Vegas starting on Wednesday. We'll do a late night bracket preview show. I believe it's going to be at 10 Eastern. From my Vegas hotel room. Going to have some special guests there. And then I'll be in Vegas on Thursday and Friday. For the Outkick VIP members, we are having a Wednesday night meetup. If you sign up for Outkick VIP and you go on the message board, it's $100. You get in Vegas to come into my suite and hang out on Wednesday night and watch the taping of this illustrious Periscope and Facebook show live. I'll also answer any questions you have. And I'm providing beer. That's $99 for the year. Outkick VIP, only VIP members. On Thursday, Sportsbook Review, we're going to be having a public meetup. That means that I will wave to you from a distance so that I'm not assassinated inside of a sports book. That is going on Thursday. Going to be an awesome week for Outkick in Las Vegas for the NCAA tournament. Also, my guy Ryan Kelly took care of everybody at thehomeloanexpert.com. Spectacular suite, the best in all of the arena there in St. Louis for the SEC basketball tournament. Go get hooked up now. Now's the time. Spring is almost here, notwithstanding a little bit of a cold snap. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. Get pre-qualified for your mortgage, because no matter where you go, okay, all over this country, you're going to be battling for the home that you want. It is highly competitive for good houses in great neighborhoods. Why not make sure that you are pre-qualified and get hooked up now? Okay, we got a lot to get to. O.J. Simpson, I can't believe this. I watched this and I said, my God, everybody's going to be talking about this all day tomorrow in the sports media. 24 years ago, O.J. Simpson murdered Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson, his wife, in cold blood in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles. For some reason, Fox recorded an interview with him in 2006 where he admitted to the murders and then didn't show it to anybody for 11 years because they decided that in 2006 it was too controversial to actually air. My mind is blown by this entire story. If you haven't watched OJ's confession, go to Outkick.com right now. It's the top story on our site. Hundreds of thousands of you are going and watching it because inexplicably, I'm the only person in sports media actually talking about OJ confessing to a double murder. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. This is the biggest story of sports mixed with media, mixed with murder in the history of our country. We have been debating it. Everybody talked about the People versus O.J. Simpson. ESPN ran around bragging about the Oscar that they won, where they tried to defend O.J. Simpson's double murder because, there were racist people in Los Angeles when O.J. was a little kid. And all that pales in comparison to what we saw last night. So if you are watching me right now and you have not seen this clip, it is bone-chilling. There is a 6-minute clip that is up on Outkick from last night's special on Fox where OJ admitted that he murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. And I don't know what's going on in the world that every single sports person is not talking about this exclusively. I'll talk a little bit about the NCAA brackets. I'll talk some about NFL hating ESPN. But this is the biggest story that we've been waiting for a payoff on for nearly a quarter of a century. And we finally get it. And my mind is blown by this because I don't understand, first of all, what in the world have Fox people been thinking? They had O.J. Simpson admitting that he committed double murder on video, awkwardly and psychotically laughing, talking about some random guy that nobody's ever seen that makes it sound like he's in a strange, murderous version of Fight Club, where he has multiple personality disorders and he's supposedly speaking in a hypothetical sense. It's insane watching this video. I'm not sure if he's a psychopath or a sociopath or so mentally deranged that he's not even capable of understanding the way things work. He invented a friend named Charlie. He admitted that he went to Nicole Brown Simpson's house and was slinking around outside looking in the windows when this guy shows up, Ron Goldman, to deliver something to Nicole Simpson. He said that Ron Goldman got into a karate fighting stance and that he pulled out the knife and he sliced all their heads off. He blacked out, he says, and when he came back to, he was just standing in a pool of blood. He told us what happened that night. He took us onto that patio outside of Nicole Simpson's home. And we have not known what the final moments of Nicole Simpson or Ron Goldman were like for a long time. And unbelievably, we finally got some resolution in this case. And I can't believe that it has not received the media attention that I thought it would. I was filled with questions last night as I watched this. And if you listen to my morning radio show, I played the full unedited clip 3 times on that show. You can go listen on the podcast as well. And I understand there are lots of other stories, but I have long been fascinated by the O.J. Simpson trial because I believe that O.J. Simpson was the first evidence of race being used as a defense and not as a reason why someone should be killed successfully. Let me explain. OJ to me is a major cultural moment for our country because for a long time, if you were black, it meant you were frequently treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. And certainly I can go through a long history of cases which are fascinating and unfortunate in this country to study where being black made it more likely that you were found guilty. OJ, to me, represented a pivot where a black person who was clearly guilty was able to not be found guilty because he was cashing the checks of the unequal and unfair treatment of prior individuals who were found guilty because of their race. In other words, I've been making this argument for a while, and I want you to follow me here. We in America did not swing from inequality to truth and justice to everyone. I believe that we swung right across truth and impartiality and swung into the Johnny Cochran era of using race as an excuse to allow you to avoid punishment for what you actually did. And in 1995, when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, for many people that was not a verdict on O.J., it was a verdict on the history of racial oppression within police forces. But very few people made the point that O.J. Simpson was effectively being the exact opposite of Emmett Till's of the world. Emmett Till was a young black kid who went to Mississippi that didn't do anything wrong at all and was murdered, and no one was ever brought to justice for the murder that he committed. O.J. Simpson took the Emmett Tills of the world and used them to avoid being found guilty for a crime that he committed. And the irony of this, if you study the O.J. Simpson case at all, is O.J. Simpson famously said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J." The idea that the LA Police Department was biased against O.J., if you actually study this case, was insane. O.J. was protected by the LA police to an extent that very few individuals of any race have ever been before. O.J. beat the crap out of his wife. If you go and look online, there is an unbelievable video of O.J. Simpson working out where he makes jokes during his workout session about how he's punching, and you might even want to use those punches to hit women if they talk back a little bit to you. O.J. Simpson, there was 911 videos, audio clips of him beating the crap out of Nicole Simpson. This was a man who believed that he owned his ex-wife and found it unacceptable that she would have a life with anybody else other than him. He consistently stalked her. He showed up at her house at odd hours. He would walk around in the dark and peer into the windows and watch her hooking up with other men, and the anger built in him. Marcus Allen, she had an affair with after O.J., had a relationship after O.J., and O.J. was furious because Marcus Allen was a younger version of O.J. Simpson. A young, good-looking running back who was banging his ex-wife. And so on that night, if you listen to that clip, O.J. takes us inside of his brain, and he was of the utter belief that he possessed Nicole Simpson. And when he showed up that night, he went there with a knife in hand, and he committed a double murder. And he confessed to it, and Fox sat on the tape for 12 years because it was too controversial to air. I would love to hear Fox executives talk about why they never aired this as a newsworthy event back in 2006. How in the world did they supposedly lose it for 12 years and then only bring it back because they're so upset about American Idol moving to ABC that they were trying to cross-program against it? O.J. committed a murder, and he just admitted to it, and I am blown away that this is not like the lead story. I've been on the internet all day today as I'm taking breaks working on my book, and I'm like, how is this not the lead story on the Drudge Report? How are people talking about Stormy Daniels and whether or not she's going to be able to tell her story? And by the way, what's her story? Donald Trump slept with me? Is that really that interesting of a story when we're talking about O.J. Simpson admitting to murdering two people? Now, there's no double jeopardy at play here. You can't be tried for a crime again. The jury decided that O.J. Simpson was not guilty. And if you remember and follow that case, one of the jurors gave a Black Power sign, just like in 1968 when the not guilty verdict was read. Think about that for a moment. O.J. Simpson cashed in on the brutal murders of innocent black people in the 1950s and the 1960s to use racism as an excuse for why he could commit double murder, even though he had never been an actual victim of racism himself. And this, to me, is emblematic of where we have moved as a country. People are not responsible for what they do now. They use their background as an excuse for everything. I'm in my book right now writing, and my argument on identity politics is that we moved from an era of identity politics when someone in England would say, I'm the third Earl Vice Chancellor of Wales and the Welsh Kingdom, and I'm the Duke of Fauntleroy, and all these different lead-ins, and then you finally get to, and oh, my name is William. Watch how often in a modern American era, before somebody gives you their opinion, they put all these signifiers in front of it. As a black transgender lesbian female activist, I feel. Why does all that matter? Why do you need to give me all of your identifying characteristics before you give me your opinion? Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't care about any of that. I don't care about your benediction there of why your opinion matters more than mine. That's the exact same thing as used to happen in the 17 and 1800s. You are using your identity to justify your opinion. Your identity doesn't justify your opinion, or at least it shouldn't. Your opinion, and whether or not you can defend it rigorously when questioned, should justify your opinion. Sitting around and trying to argue in this modern identity politics era, it all began with OJ. Because effectively what Johnny Cochran argued was OJ Simpson's not guilty because the Los Angeles Police Department is racist. Those are two different things. First of all, an entire police department is not racist. Individual police officers can be racist. But what is the motivation there to frame OJ? You only have to convince 12 people, and there's no doubt that the prosecution did a poor job of convincing 12 people. But to me, O.J. Simpson represents the beginning of our identity politics era. And that's why the fact that he confessed, and what's interesting about this to me is, I wasn't plugged into identity politics in any way back in 1994 and 95 when I was 15 and 16 years old, and I followed this case. I didn't see O.J. Simpson as a black guy who killed two white people. I saw O.J. Simpson as a guy who killed two people. The race of O.J. Simpson and the race of his victims, to me, was not integral to this case in any way. Now, maybe that makes me crazy, but I have followed through in that in my own legal career, where I have had it ingrained in me over and over and over again. And if you study what I talk about on this show and what I write about, what I always say is the only thing that matters to me are three things, because this is what was told to me by my criminal justice professor when I was at Vanderbilt Law School. There are only three things that matter about every case: the facts, the facts, the facts. That was it. All that matters are the facts. And if you look at the way we live today, that's not the way arguments are made. All that matters is race, sex, and sexual orientation. How many times do you hear people say, as a gay black man, as a gay white woman, as a transgender, like all of these different signifiers which have nothing to do to me with your opinion. It's just a modern day form of royalty where you are trying to use your identity, which you do not control in any way, to justify your opinion and argue that other people's opinion does not actually matter. Think about how absurd it is if you start making similar arguments about other characteristics. Like, imagine if I was like, as a brown-haired white man with green eyes, I believe, you'd be like, why the fuck does it matter that you have brown hair and green eyes before you give your opinion? Every single one of you out there would be like, what? What? Why is that dude starting off his opinion by saying, as a brown-haired, green-eyed white man, I believe? Those are literally three things that I can't control at all. I got gray hair by genetics. I got green eyes by genetics. I'm a white man by genetics. All of those things are how I was born, and they shouldn't implicate in any way whether you believe me or don't believe me about any subject. O.J. Simpson represented the fruition of identity politics. O.J. Simpson was guilty, but O.J. Simpson as a black man was innocent. And we have followed down that pathway, I think, even more aggressively in the early parts of the 21st century. One of the arguments I'm making in my book right now which I think you guys are going to find fascinating, is in the wake of the civil rights movement, many prominent black individuals rose to success, not because of their race, but because of their talent. Oprah Winfrey became the most successful talk show host in America. Bill Cosby became the most successful sitcom actor and writer and comedian in America. Will Smith became the most lucrative actor in America. Michael Jordan became the most successful athlete of all time. Barack Obama, I voted for him twice not because he was black, but because I thought he offered the best pathway in 2008 and in 2012. But remember, Barack Obama memorably said, "I'm not the president of black America," and he was skeptical of the Al Sharptons and Reverend Jesse Jacksons of the world, whom he deemed professionally black. In other words, he didn't want to define himself as a black politician, just like Bill Cosby didn't want to define himself as a black comic, and Will Smith didn't want to define himself as a black actor, and Oprah Winfrey didn't want to define herself as a black talk show host. Their goal was excellence. As we have moved into further years of the 21st century, I think that people are starting to tribalize themselves much more. And as a result, everybody is identifying, instead of a goal of appealing to everyone, everyone is going to their respective tribes and trying to compartmentalize their appeal. Jemele Hill is a great example of this. I tried to get Jemele Hill to host a national sports talk radio show with me before she went insane. I considered her to be a friend. I thought that we could have a really entertaining show because we could appeal to the entire nation. I think that everybody would have liked a Clay Travis Jemele Hill sports talk show. Not because she's a black woman and I'm a white guy, but because we could have, I believe, connected in a way that would have connected with the entire country. And sometimes black people would have disagreed with Jemele Hill and they would have agreed with me. And sometimes white people would have agreed with Jemele and not agreed with me. Because when you're trying to talk to the entire nation, you are not tribalizing your appeal. Instead, I believe Jemele Hill went off the reservation and decided that she had to preface every opinion she has by saying, as a black woman, I believe. I don't think that matters. I think people in America judge you based on whether they agree with your opinion or not what you look like or how you self-identify. I don't think this show would be any less popular if I came on and said, hey, guess what? I like to bang dudes. I'm gay. I think a lot of you would be like, okay, so what? I don't care. Which is why it's funny, like I'm writing about this right now. Everybody's like, oh, Michael Sam is the Jackie Robinson of sports. Jackie Robinson was black and it was impossible to ignore that he was black. If Michael Sam hadn't come out and told us that he liked to have sex with dudes, nobody would have ever known that he liked to have sex with dudes. Calling Michael Sam the Jackie Robinson of modern sports is an insult to Jackie Robinson and also an absurd statement, which, by the way, most people in sports media not named Clay Travis would have endorsed. All of this, I think, spirals from OJ. And all of it, I think, is an incredible window into our modern day culture. I want you to start thinking about how often you see people identifying themselves in ways that you can already tell that they're identified. And start asking yourself, how would I respond if Clay Travis came on and before every opinion he said, as a white man with brown hair and green eyes, I believe. Because that is what is happening in this country today. Before people give you their opinion, they're using things that they had no control over as a justification for their opinion, which is the exact same thing that royalty used to do in the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. The right of kings was predicated on the idea that the king, whatever his belief was coming directly to God, to him. We're doing the same thing all over again, just in a different way of identity politics. And I believe all of that started with OJ, who, by the way, admitted he killed 2 people last night. And the rest of the sports media was upset. I saw Doug Gottlieb tweet, and people are arguing over whether or not Arizona should be a 4 seed. Was Arizona underseeded? Motherfucker. OJ just admitted he killed 2 people. And you're going to talk about whether Arizona's underseeded? And you want to talk about whether Purdue deserved the 2 seed? And you want to argue about whether Xavier's the best team in the Midwest? OJ just admitted he killed 2 people. It reminds me of when I was in law school, we had 9/11 happen, and they didn't cancel classes, and I went into legal writing. I remember sitting there like, holy crap, 9/11 just happened. And the teacher was just up there talking about stuff that didn't matter, about like Blue Book citation form. And if you're not a lawyer, you don't know what Blue Book citation form is. Literally the most boring thing on the face of the planet. And like, I was amazed by how many of my classmates were sitting there taking notes on Blue Book citation form. They're like, now does the period go inside the parenthetical or outside of it? And I was sitting there like pulling out my hair like, motherfucker, the World Trade Centers just fell down. How do you care about whether the period goes inside the parenthetical or not? That's how I feel today about anybody out there in the world of sports media who's talking about anything other than the fact that O.J. Simpson confessed to murder last night. And again, I think Fox's feet should be held to the fire on why in the world they had such a newsworthy clip and they didn't show it for 12 years. That should have been on the minute that they finished recording it. They got a 4-hour sit down with O.J. Simpson. I want to see all 4 hours. And how did they lose it? They said, like, we lost it for a while. How do you lose an O.J. Simpson exclusive interview? I lose my mind if I lose a pen in this house. I'll be walking around, like, ask my wife about it. Every now and then I'll just throw a fit and I'll be like, I want to buy 1 million pens. Because any moment, if I can't find a pen and I want to write something down, I'm going to lose my mind. 2 things that every house should always have. Pens and salsa. If there's any point in time where I live in this house and there is no salsa, also ketchup, salsa, ketchup, and pens, I don't care if you have to fill up an entire cabinet. If I open up a cabinet and all that is in there is unlimited salsa and unlimited pens and unlimited ketchup, none of those 3 things should ever run out in this house. If I ever have a hamburger or French fries and there's not ketchup, I'm going to lose my mind. Just like I'm going to lose my mind if there's not pens and also if there's not ketchup. Maybe toilet paper too. Toothpaste as well. Relatively few things I think should just be stocked in all one cabinet, all right? That's how everybody should be reacting to OJ. As angry as I get when I don't have a pen. And if you don't like my accent, go fuck yourself. As a southern white man with brown hair and a beard and green eyes, this is how I talk, motherfucker. If you don't like it, go watch ESPN. Anyway, OJ killed 2 people. OJ killed 2 people, and people are sitting around like, well, maybe Purdue didn't deserve the 2 seed. Maybe Arizona's underseeded as the 4. Motherfucker, OJ killed 2 people and just admitted to it. How are you talking about anything else? How can I turn on any television network right now and not have the entire story everywhere about OJ admitting that he killed 2 people on video with the actual clips that you can play? I don't know what's going on in the world. Motherfucker kills 2 people and admits to it after 25 years of denying it. Everybody wants to talk about the NFL hating ESPN. All right. I've almost gone the whole show. You know what? I'm going to save the NFL hating ESPN, and I'm also going to save my NCAA tourney bracket talk tomorrow because it would be hypocritical of me to talk about anything else. Any questions about I'll go, since I'm just going to talk about OJ today, any questions from you guys about OJ today? and the OJ show that aired last night. I'll respond to any of your OJ questions from a legal perspective, anything else on Facebook or on Twitter here with Periscope, anything about it. I haven't written anything about OJ yet. It's a good question in the new book. The new book right now, the tentative title is Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, How America Went Crazy and Sports Became Politics by Any Other Name in the Trump Era. And the subtitle will end up better. But I have not written anything about OJ so far in the book, although it is an interesting question as to when America went crazy. My argument for when sports media went crazy in this country is that it really started, at least in the thesis of my book, with Michael Sam. I think Michael Sam becoming the first gay player in the NFL was the moment when I noticed that sports stopped being about sports. Michael Sam, relative to his football talents, is the most over-covered athlete in the history of sports up to that point. Okay? Up to that point, there's certainly been over-covered athletes, but they were LeBron James, they were Tim Tebow, they were Johnny Manziel. They were really good at what they did. Making Michael Sam the equivalent of one of these top athletes because he liked to sleep with men was a clear decision of social engineering that we were going, as a collective whole in the sports media, to make a big deal about the fact that Michael Sam was a publicly open gay player, when I think the vast majority of the American public did not care. Just like they didn't care when, was it John Amici wrote a book about being the first gay basketball player, and ESPN also published it and then turned it into a huge story. I don't think that American sports fans care who you sleep with. They care whether you're good or not. Now, if a great player were gay, okay, cover him. But when you're talking about a 7th round draft pick and you're covering him more so than any other draftee, I think that's when cultural engineering became a part of what ESPN made decisions on. And then that led into Caitlyn Jenner, that led into Colin Kaepernick, that led into an artificial reality in the world of sports, where I just use this as an example I'm writing about right now. Do you remember when that guy got fired, almost got fired at SI for saying that he didn't like women's sports because they sucked compared to men's sports, and he had to issue an apology? Is there anybody watching this right now who disagrees with that statement? Women's sports compared to men's sports suck. All ratings reflect that. I doubt there's a single person out there who's like, you know what? I'm going to watch the WNBA instead of the NBA. I'm not going to watch the NCAA men's tournament. I'm only going to watch the NCAA women's tournament. I don't really like the World Cup. I'm more of a women's World Cup guy. If the two sports are the same, there are exceptions, like women's gymnastics, I think may be more entertaining than men's gymnastics. Women's figure skating may be more entertaining than men's figure skating. But if the two sports are the identical same, there's no way on earth that anybody is choosing to watch the women's sport over the men's. So that's the truth. A couple of you asking about Charlie. O.J. Simpson and his hypothetical. Again, I would encourage all of you to go to Outkick.com and watch this clip. I would encourage all of you to go watch it right now. But he says that like he had an accomplice, this guy named Charlie. To me, that is, first of all, there's no evidence that anybody else was with OJ. I'd encourage you to read the Jeffrey Toobin book on this case. It's phenomenal. There's nobody else there with OJ. There's no other footprints in the blood. There's no other biological or physical or DNA evidence that would suggest that anybody else was present there. There are witnesses who saw OJ driving to and from this home. That's a total made-up fantasy. I think that OJ is psychologically unstable, much like Tyler Durden in Fight Club. I think that OJ has invented potentially an alter ego and potentially other people who he believes are his friends. I think OJ psychologically is incredibly messed up. I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm not sure whether he's a sociopath, a psychopath, whether he is guilty of multiple personality disorder. I don't know all of it, but I believe that he is that it's a mess. I believe that OJ is a true mess. And like I said, you need to watch this video. And I think if all of you go to Outkick right now and you watch this video or you share my reaction discussing it, I think all of you are going to say, holy hell, how did OJ Simpson publicly last night on Fox confess after 11 or 12 years of Fox not airing this to a double murder, and it's not the number one story in America today. I'm baffled that all of the attention can have been given to OJ, and this cannot be the number one story in America. Okay, we might talk OJ tomorrow morning again because nobody else seems to be covering it, despite the fact that I can tell from the data on social media, you guys are also with me. You're obsessed with it. I don't know why this story is being ignored. You can go cover it, go watch it at Outkick.com. I'll be back tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Again, a reminder, I'll be in Vegas Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. VIP event on Wednesday night. We're going to do a public event with Sportsbook Review on Thursday, but I'll only wave at you from a distance. If you want to be hanging out with me on Wednesday night in my suite, you got to be an Outkick VIP, $99. You can go sign up for it if you're going to be in Vegas. You can come hang, you have beers, you ask me any questions that you want. I love all of you. Thanks for watching the show. Share it with your friends. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick, the show. By the way, OJ killed 2 people and admitted it. Share the video. Should be the number one story in America, and it isn't. I have no idea why. Clearly, because some people are idiots. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.